Good afternoon. Thanks for coming. Let me start by saying, it's a great honor to be here today in front of you. I want to thank Tommy Smith for bringing me here. Certainly, what Rustin said was exactly that. We had a good talk last Friday night, and we hit it off. Sometimes those things happen, and feel very good about where we're going as an organization. And I'm excited to get in here and get to work.
Going forward, obviously one of the things on everybody's mind is the quarterback situation. You've got a reputation for having worked with quarterbacks and been able to get the best out of them. What's your assessment of Jake Locker?
Well, I tell you what, we just got finished with our season 2 days ago. It's been kind of a whirlwind. So, it's a lot of time that goes into that, especially when you get into the playoffs. So I really haven't had a chance to study that. That's going to be a big thing over the next weeks and months, as far as evaluating our players and how they fit in. The one thing I'll say is I like Jake coming out, and one of the things that I think we've done a good job of in the places I've been is putting them in positions to be successful, and that's what our goal is to be here.
Ken, can you talk about how you arrived here? I know you said you did it off with Rustin, but you had, I'm not talking about a plane.
You beat me to the punch.
You had Detroit and next, you injured Cleveland. Why Tennessee? Why did you pick here? And was it a struggle for you trying to decide where to go?
It is, it's always a struggle. I think the thing that was difficult was the timing, just because it was an emotional day from the standpoint of having lost a tough game on Sunday and battling to get where we were. So there's a lot of things going through your mind. But, first of all, I was very lucky to have an opportunity to speak with Rustin. Anytime any organization in this league has an interest in you, I think it's very flattering. So Detroit and Cleveland both, great organizations, but I think really what it came down to was you have to feel comfortable about the direction that you're going and who you're doing that with. And that's not to say anything about any other organization. I think one of the things that I've learned in my time in the NFL is that chemistry is an important part of this. And when you feel like you have that chemistry and you're excited about it, that plays a big part of it.
How much did you, in the last year, sort of think about your next opportunity and maybe some things you want to do differently or better in this role?
Well, I think you don't think as much. When you're in a season, you don't really think as much about your next opportunity. You're focused on trying to win a game in this league, which is hard. And our season in San Diego was up and down. We were at 5-7 with some 4 games left, and your focus is so much on just trying to finish strong, and we did that. So, I didn't think as much about that. Now, as I sit here today and think about the experiences that I've had in the league, I think one of the important things is that you learn from them, and I think I'll do just that. I was very lucky to have been in a number of different places with successful coaches. We've had a little bit of success myself as a head coach, and you always look back and think there's things you'd like to do differently, and thankfully I'm going to get an opportunity to try that.
What sort of systems do you envision running at this point? Are you a 3-4 guy as you've been in the past, and what will your offense look like?
Well, hopefully our offense will look a little bit like it looked this past year in San Diego. We were pretty good. I think we're going to be versatile offensively. We'll have a number of different personnel packages. I think we'll have some up-tempo components with it. A lot of it's going to be dependent upon our personnel and what they can handle. We're going to push them. That's where you have success when you do that. Defensively, there's a misconception, I think, about the 3-4 and the 4-3. 70% of this game now is in sub-defense, which is 4 down, 3 down. You're using both components when you do that. So I know this, as an offensive coach, when you're preparing for a 4-3 and a 3-4, it's very difficult because of protection issues. So, you have to have elements of both of them. I think to say that we're going to run a 3-4 two-gap defense, that's not what we're going to do.
Ken, when Rod Dowd bought you in 1995, did you think in your wildest dreams you'd be here? Talk about that first experience.
You know what? First of all, I'd like to thank Rod because he gave me my start, and certainly Vanderbilt University did the same thing. I'm very grateful for that, and it's kind of ironic that I get a chance to come back to where it all started for me. But when you're a former player and you're trying to decide what you want to do in your life after football, to get an opportunity to coach college football was unique, and I'm very grateful for that. But it didn't take very long once I got into it to realize how important it was to me. So, this is a special place for me, and I'm glad to be back.
Ken, what was the place in the interview where you started to say, hey, we see things alike, this can work, I hope this goes somewhere?
Well, George, I tell you, it's good to see you again as well, George. But I think a lot of it had to do with people that we knew in common, people that you have strong relationships with and that you trust. And that kind of set the table. And then it doesn't take long after that when you talk about your vision and things that you see and things that are important and you agree on them. So, that was a big piece of it, and it was very good.
Would you expect to be the play caller, Ken?
Unless somebody tells me I can't, yes. You know what? I'm quite aware of that.
Ken, as far as your staff, do you have some people lined up already to come with you? And is there a chance that you'll keep some people from the staff that was here last year that are still under contract?
Well, Rustin and I have talked about it, and I'm going to sit down and talk with the staff. And once again, we're looking for good football coaches. And I know there's some good coaches on this staff, but there's also some good coaches that I hope I get an opportunity to speak to. So this is a process that's, with the way the NFL rules are now, it's a little bit tricky. There's some coaches that you'll have to ask for permission to speak to. You may or may not get that opportunity, and there are other coaches that are out there that you will get a chance to. So it's going to be a little bit of a kind of a back and forth over the next week or so. But the one thing, and I know talking to Mr. Smith and Rustin both, is that we want to get good coaches and we want to get it done as soon as we can, and that's our goal.
I know the rules are the rules, but you've been denied permission to talk to guys when you were head coach. You've denied permission, or your organization has.
Yes.
For your assistants. I feel like it holds some people back. I know it's the nature of the beast, but if you're a linebackers coach and there could be an opportunity to be a defensive coordinator, would you like to see an environment someday where that move could happen?
Well, you know what? The people that have been in this league for a long time have made great decisions about the league, and they're a lot smarter than I am, and I don't question anything about the way it's structured.
How much influence did Tommy and Rustin have on you to convince you to come here? Was there ever a time when you thought you might be heading somewhere else and they did something to entice you to come here instead?
You know what? I think in this place is special to me, and that has a pull. I think it has, from my experience in playing here as an opponent coming in here, fan base is great. They're loud. You like that environment. So when you think about wanting to coach in a place where you have that, that's our goal, for our fans to be supportive of us. Now that means we've got to do a good job of giving them a product to be proud of. So, the fact that I felt so good about Rustin, and that Mr. Smith and I had many good conversations, and I felt very good about him when I met him. I think that was a big piece of it.
How much in Arizona, how much did you learn about what not to do as a head coach the next time you got a chance?
Well, there was a lot of good in Arizona, going to a Super Bowl and winning, being in 6 playoff games. So you try to learn from the good and the bad. Obviously, it didn't end well in Arizona for us, and sometimes that happens in the NFL, but I think looking back on it, you can draw from that and try to correct some things that maybe you do differently.
You said you hadn't evaluated Jake Locker yet, and he's injured, which means you probably won't get a chance to see him very well before the draft. So how do you balance out the decision-making process at the quarterback position, given that you might not know what a healthy Jake Locker is going to look like if the draft will be here before you know that?
Well, I really trust Rustin in his assessment of our team and his staff, and I think that's part of the process. Plus, you can look at some of the things that he had on tape. Hopefully I'll get a chance to sit with him and talk with him, because that's a big piece of the puzzle too. But everything that I've heard about Jake, as far as a student of the game and how he works, has been positive. And for the successful guys that I've been around, that's a big piece of it. So that'll help.
You've had a pretty strong running game where you've been, as well. At least you try to emphasize the run. What are your thoughts on Chris Johnson, and do you envision him being part of your?
I haven't really had a chance to look at Chris and this team offensively. I know a little bit more about the defense because we played them what was it, third game of the season, even though that seems like forever ago. But that's going to be something that we look at over the next couple of weeks and months.
What are some of your thoughts on the defense, just in general, on the personnel?
Well, I know when we came in here and played them that I thought they had good personnel. I thought they played hard. You know, there was some issues we thought as far as being able to handle some of the guys up front. And I know the secondary, they played well against us. So you just never know. I mean, that's, what, 13 games later? A lot can change over the course of 13 games. So, you know, part of that's going to be looking at the tape and seeing what we feel like where they are right now.
Ken, Weston, and I think Tommy certainly agrees with this, have talked about wanting a head coach with a vision and a philosophy. What is your vision and philosophy, and what's that rooted in? What background does that come from?
Well, I'll answer that in reverse order. A lot of it starts with Joe Gibbs and, of course, Bill Cowher. Both were good coaches that I learned a lot from, I believe. And as far as the vision for our team, you know, I want a smart, tough, disciplined football team. We're going to work, you know, but we're also going to. But the important thing is that they're ready to go on Sunday, and you know, so we're looking for those type of characters, players that fit that mold, and you know, I think there's a lot of them on this team.
You're a peel the paint kind of guy in terms of addressing your team, or how would you describe your?
Well, you know, I think maybe some of the players that I've coached before, they would be a good source if you could ask that question. There have been times, I'm sure, where I have peeled the paint, but you know, I have a lot of respect for these guys in this job. But you know, we demand that they perform at a high level, and as long as they're doing that, then you really don't have any issues.
How much do you anticipate the screen game being part of your run philosophy? It's not something that's been a big element.
The screen game? To be honest with you, sometimes it's the teams you're playing. We played Cincinnati 2 weeks ago in a playoff game, and it's hard to get a screen against them because their D-line look for the screens, and they do a nice job with it. So, you know, I guess really that kind of goes to the philosophy of trying to do what you think's the best attack against them. So, in a nutshell, maybe there'll be some games where we'll screen it more when we feel like it's a good match, and there'll be some when we don't.
Your games will dictate it, but what's a perfect, I guess, run-pass ratio for you?
50-50. How about that? Right in the middle. We were close to that. We were close to that in San Diego. Actually, we were skewed a little bit heavily more towards the run later in the season, and that was more of a function of game planning and trying to intelligently attack an opponent that we wanted to keep off the field.
One of the things that this team has had problems with in the last several years, even predating Rustin, is that there have not been enough explosive plays, especially in the passing game. And you have a past history in Arizona of being able to get that out of players. What are some of your philosophies in terms of being able to get big chunks of yardage and being creative that way?
Well, we had a lot of success with that, doing some gadget plays. And when I was in Pittsburgh, you know, we've had success doing other things in different places. I think it's a function of your team, you know, and what type of players you have and what type of positions you can put them in to do that. You know, sometimes some of the most explosive plays are short passes that turn into long run after catch. So I don't think you go in with the idea we're going to have 15 explosive plays in a game. I mean, what you're trying to do is attack a defense and get some of those shots. But if you think every play is designed to go 100 yards for a touchdown, that's not the way it works. A lot of times where you're successful in this league offensively is getting those 5- and 6-yard completions or runs and keeping it in third and short and converting third downs, because then you can sustain drives. And sustained drives lead to possession time, which, you know, depending on the type of game that you're playing, is a big piece of the puzzle.
How do you feel you and your staffs did in Arizona developing young talent? And what's maybe your philosophy on a leash for a guy in terms of building his confidence, but also pulling him from a game if and when he's not producing to your standard?
Well, you know, some of that is dictated by where you are as a team. I mean, sometimes you have to play with guys whether they're struggling or not, young players, because you could have a situation that week where you're injured or you don't have a number of guys at that position. So, you know, I think the biggest thing that you got to have is competition, because I think that brings the best out in players. If they're not going to do it the right way, if they're not going to work hard at it, then they're not going to play. And if you have a healthy environment like that, and you have guys that buy into what you're doing, then you have a good chance to be successful.
Do you see this team as a team that's in a rebuilding mode, or is this a team that's ready to compete for the championship, and did you make any promises enough for these guys?
Well, I mean, I think maybe Rustin and Mr. Smith could answer that a little better than me, but I don't think that there's ever a game that you go into thinking that you're not going to win.